Welcome everyone. Today is Tuesday, June 27th, 2023, and this is a regular meeting of the City of Asbury Park Zoning Board of Adjustments. Chairman Avalone, will you please call the meeting to order?
I'd be happy to. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the Coaster and Asbury Park Press by publication of the annual meeting notice and posted on the municipal bulletin board and municipal website. All notices are on file with the board's secretary. Official action may be taken on the following matters before this board. Fire exits are located on the east and west sides of the council chambers as well as the back of the building. And I ask everyone with a cell phone to please mute it for the duration of this meeting. And this meeting is being recorded by APTV.
I will now take roll call. Wendy Glassman. Here. Daniel Harris.
Here.
Russell Lewis is absent. Jill
And
Potter.
recused.
And recused. Oh, you're right, absent and recused. Jill Potter.
Here.
Tim Slick.
Here.
Jose Alcaraz.
Here.
Vice Chair John Scully.
Here.
Chairman Avalone.
Here. All right, the continuation of 13 Grand Point Way, Ocean View Development, 704 4th Avenue. Mr. Prohl, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And good evening again. I'm Thomas Prohl, PROL with Sills, Cummins & Gross. I'm here. I brought the full complement of professionals. I did speak with Mr. Beekman earlier this week. I think we have some progress in terms of having listened to what the board said. I think we're going to migrate away from some of our asks here. We heard, we listened. I think we're going to move in a better direction with things. First of all, I took the board's invitation. I did go back through the prior hearings. I listened. I actually thought it was a pleasant hearing. I thought there was obviously a lot of public, but most of the questions focused on the issue of this three unit house versus a 1 unit house and the zoning. There was some discussion on the FAR issue with the floor height and the height, and I listened to that. So we're responsive on that, and that we think what the best approach here, based on the sort of the feedback we got from the board, is to withdraw that FAR variance, and we'll just put in the ceiling consistent with the plans that were submitted, and that should resolve that. The other issue we are going to ask for the board to hear us out on. We understand the concerns. You know, as I did the deep dive, because it was quite a deep dive that I did based on the board's request.
How many hours did you listen to, Mr. Prohl?
I didn't bill for them, so that's the good news for my client. But I really felt I needed to do it right. And to do that, I listened, I went through the emails and all that. And what I saw between the professionals was a very pleasant exchange, but it was an exchange. And there was conversations going on through the emails that I saw where plans were submitted, revisions were made, and it gave me the confidence my client had tried to do the right thing. There was no hiding of anything, that they actually went to the professionals. There was one in particular, which I have a copy of, where they went to the board chair, they asked, and they were told they had to come before this board with the requests they have tonight, and that's where they're at with that. There were some deviations, and that's why we're here tonight, to ask for the board's permission to continue with those. One in particular, of course, was the asphalt. I do have my client here. He's going to tell you the story. He's going to expose himself for your questioning, of course, and you can judge for yourself. We come here humbly to ask for permission on most of these issues. Some of these, I think there's a natural organic reason why they occurred. And setting aside that basement issue, which is no longer an issue, I think you're going to hear some testimony. I think that's compelling for our ask here. Like I said,
You say it's no longer an issue, Mr. Prohl. Do you have your architect to speak to us about what changes are going to be made regarding the basement?
Yeah, we're going to, and like I said, we do have the architect here that will be consistent with the plans. There's going to be a drop ceiling with no...
A drop ceiling? That was
I
not
apologize, I apologize. I'll let the architect speak for that. That's off the table. It's going to be a permanent ceiling with the recessed lights like the plans show, and he'll get to that. Allow me to defer on that for the moment until the architect can speak.
Okay.
So
where would you like to begin?
Yeah, so we'd like to start out, and I'd first like to just show you a couple of the emails which I think show some of what went on here in the background. And I think that hasn't been brought to bear yet. I'd like to submit these just for the board's consideration. The first is emails with Insight Engineering with our professionals that deal with some of the revised plans that were submitted. In one of the emails, it's October 12, 2022, we have Mr. Cleland emailing with our engineer, Matthew Wilder, and speaking about how that he spoke with Michelle Alonso, who spoke with the chair, presumably the chair of this board, and the changes to the fence and adding a gate need to come back before the board, which is why we're here.
Yes.
Consistent with that. And the issue with the shrubbery, which I think they did in cooperation with the neighbors, was something also needed to be before the board. But as for that, there was a whole plan that was submitted, and this is what's telling. He said the engineering changes, including the porous pavers and grading on the other hand, and include the application, the revised shows the change in the sidewalk location. Those, he says he does not have an issue with those. This is what was put in this email. And so I just want you to know, and I recognize the board's authority here. I'm not disputing that, but I just want you to know there's an organic conversation that went on.
I believe our engineer was involved. Weren't you involved with all these conversations, Doug?
Yeah, we were, and a lot of the stuff that...
Should you be under oath first?
Yeah, let's do that. So if you would both swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening will be the truth and whole, nothing but the truth. I did. So are we going to mark these, Mr. Kroll?
Yes, we are, and it's, I think we started at A2 as our last one, so it'll be A3.
Yeah, the only thing it appears I have is A1.
Oh, I think there was confusion, and then I believe we merged them, yes. So A2 and A3, may I approach?
Please.
Thank you.
These are not.
How many pages are there here?
Yeah, there's I think it's a 4-page email.
Two pages.
I mean, it should be 6 pages.
They do.
Can I keep them all?
Yeah, I give you a double.
Okay.
You win.
No, this I This is an extra.
Thank you very much.
Those three.
And I just present these as but 2 examples of the conversation that went on as this development took shape. This home took shape.
Could we just have a minute to read this?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And just for identification purposes, while the board members are doing that, what, you said A2 and A3, what's?
We'll do the one that's largely black colored. It's an email dated September 15, 2022. Douglas Cleveland to Michelle Alonso, copying several other people. That'll be A2, and then A3 will be the email dated October 12, 2022. Douglas Cleveland to Matthew Wilder, copying other people.
That's A3.
And that had several attachments to it.
That's one 4 pages.
That's, it's an email with 3 sub-emails, as well as a letter dated September 9, 2022, as well as a plan drawing by Morgan Engineering. And I'll need my reading glasses for that. It'll be, okay.
We don't know the order of this stuff.
I think by date, October 5th. September. This is the first one.
Yeah, let's just make sure, because I actually don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's A2.
It's back to forward. It's the earliest ones are in the background.
So A2 is only one page.
Correct.
This really doesn't tell me much.
No, it doesn't, because it's out of context. It's just random.
Mr. Pearl, as we review this, we understand there was conversations back and forth between, I'm well aware of that, and you're not giving me anything that's new to me. I know that I was asked in regards to the application, so what is this supposed to prove to us?
So just to set the table for some of the discussion tonight, because we did have, in the first email, A2 is to show there were weekly inspections, photographs were taken.
I understand
We
that.
interacted with professionals for the city. There was,
Agreed.
everything was above board. That's all.
Agreed. There were those discussions back and forth.
Yeah.
That's how you ended back at the board.
Right, so, yeah, and so what we did is we submitted a revised plan showing the sidewalk and all that. We asked about the pavers. We were given the indication that essentially the sidewalk and the pavers, the porous asphalt was okay.
You didn't get
No,
that.
it says
You did not
pavers, not
get that.
asphalt.
There is nothing that says the porous asphalt is okay.
Okay, I'm just saying that
Please,
there was a whole dialogue, I
You're
think.
trying to piece, this is very disturbing, and I'm gonna say it now, because I would like this proceeding to move forward. You came in here last time, and you've come in here this time. Oh, we'd like your understanding, we have some things to discuss with you, and there's gonna be an ongoing conversation. We asked you for certain deliverables before this meeting. We didn't get them. We have asked that for 2 meetings in a row. Since this matter came before us, we asked for 2 sets of plans, dropping the ceiling, raising the floor. That was item number 1. It is not in the material that we've received. You say that you're going to present something, but it is disrespectful to this board to come here and basically have ignored our requests. You heard us very clearly at our meeting last month, when we asked you about the sidewalk, that we still were talking about a sidewalk going to the front, and it is as if the proceedings of this board never took place.
Right.
It's not okay.
So I've come here tonight to explain how we're going to work through that by complying with the board's resolution. So I'm just saying that I meant no disrespect. I'm sorry that it came across that way to you. That was not what I was intending here. So what I'll ask is that as we proceed, I have professionals who will speak to the issues. As I've noted, we've already withdrawn the FAR request. We heard you about the ceiling in the basement. We will build out the ceiling consistent with the plans.
We didn't ask
That's
for
not-
that to happen. We actually asked for 2 sets of plans so that the board could decide which one is more viable, whether we lower the ceiling or raise the floor. And we've asked that since the very first meeting. Unfortunately, you weren't part of it, so I understand that. But the last meeting, we asked for it. I thought we were going to get it, then we came back and we didn't get it. So I thought tonight we were going to get the 2 plans, even if you don't like one of them, we've been asking for 2 sets.
We don't have an option for raising the floor. There's
We
no way. And
didn't, but we didn't ask you to make
decide
that
that.
choice.
Well, I'm going to have my professionals testify to that. That's why it's not an option for us. I'm just saying, we have agreed to withdraw that. We're going to build it out consistent with the plan that was, the resolution that was approved.
Here's what I would recommend to the board is, let's get to the professionals, let's get the questions started, and let's get this hearing moving forward, because we've spent a lot of time for the last 2 hearings on this. We need to move forward on this. So Mr. Paul, I would suggest that you bring your professionals up. Let's start the questioning.
Agreed.
And as I appreciate that there was communication back and forth with your applicant and your engineer and my engineer and all that, I understand that, Mr. Pearl. This doesn't show anything to me that I already didn't know, because I was involved. So I appreciate that you have these emails back and forth, but you're sitting here because there are emails back and forth. That's why.
And I appreciate that. So I'll bring up my first witness, and I know the last meeting, I'm not sure if we finished with the planner. McKinley Mertz is here. We wanted to go through that, and just, I don't think we had public.
I personally would like to hear from the architect
Yeah.
about the basement. That's where I would like to begin.
We
I don't know
finished
about my
with-
fellow board members, but I would like to begin there.
We
That
finished
seems
with
to be the
plan.
biggest bone of contention. So if we could actually begin right there with the architect and why the floor raising is not an option, that's what I would like to do.
Okay. I'd like to go in order. I mean, I just wanted to, because we
Well,
have.
so do we, and that's our number one.
Wait, that is your only variance that you must somehow overcome, correct, Mr. Prohl?
We don't have a variance application anymore. We've withdrawn that.
Understood. So somehow you have to eliminate the FAR at this point. Otherwise, we can't go forward.
Well, we're in an active construction site at this point, so we're going to continue constructing, and we're going to eliminate that. So I'm happy to have the person come up and testify, but I'm telling you, we're not seeking an FAR variance anymore.
Well,
We're going to.
but what this board has to understand, Mr. Kroll, is right now, there is an FAR issue.
Right.
As of today.
On an active construction site.
And before you.
And a variance that was never granted.
Right. Or alternatively, there is a expansion of non-conforming use. It's one of the other issues here. Because your applicant or client did not get a floor area ratio variance in 2020.
Correct.
And as a result of that, the ordinance has since changed for this property.
We're no longer
So-
seeking that. We're going to build it out consistent with the plan.
But the point is, this board needs to see what you're proposing and why the alternative is not available.
Okay.
So I think the board's right. That is one issue. It's the basement. There are other issues that are site issues, but that's a basement issue. And I think the board has been asking for testimony on that as to how that's going to be addressed.
Okay. Let me confirm with my client if you don't mind.
Do you need a recess, Mr. Prohl?
Just a couple minutes.
Just a couple minutes.
I need to ask.
A motion to,
I make a motion to take a 10-minute recess.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I will now take roll call. Wendy Glassman.
Here.
Daniel Harris.
Here.
Russell Lewis is absent. Jill Potter.
Here.
Tim Slick.
Here.
Jose Alcaraz.
Here.
Vice Chair John Scully.
Here.
And Chairman Christopher Avaloni.
Here.
And we're back.
All right, so are we ready to start with the architect, Mr. Prohl?
So we did speak with board council, and this is our position, is that we're not pursuing, we're an active construction site. I just want to remind the board, we self-disclosed this issue. This wasn't something that was found. We walked in and brought it to attention. During an active construction site, we will have the ability to come in compliance with the plan. If that isn't done to the city's satisfaction, the building department will pick up on it, and they will kick us back here. So we're going to continue on with the construction. We're going to do a permanent ceiling in that basement and bring it in compliance with the plans and the resolution. You have our assurance. And if we don't do that,
I don't
the board will have to do
understand.
that.
Isn't the assurance going to be provided by your architect?
No, the assurance will be provided by the work that's done, and the building department will come in there and do their inspection. That's in an active construction site. That's how it's done.
So what Mr. Kroll is saying, and this is the conversation he wanted talking about, what he's saying is that as of right now, they don't have a CO, TCO, or anything.
I understand.
At the very first meeting, Mr. Santori indicated if we provide plans to the building department that satisfies and removes the FAR issue, meaning doing something either with the floor or the ceiling that satisfies that maximum height requirement, so that the ceiling is lower or the floor is higher, so that the floor to ceiling height is lower than that 7-foot threshold. If the building department signed off on that, would they have to come back before and get relief from this board? And at that time, my thought was, no, that they probably would not, because they have satisfied the height requirement through the building department. What council is indicating to the board is they are submitting amended plans to the building department showing a permanent drop of the ceiling, not a drop ceiling, a permanent drop of the ceiling, lowering it so that that height is under the 7-foot threshold. And as a result of that, they would satisfy what was required by the resolution, because it's a permanent ceiling, not a drop ceiling, not something that could be removed. It would meet all of the code standards. And as a result of that, they're not asking for a change of relief from this board. Thinking about it, I happen to agree with it. Because as long as it's permanent, and as long as the building office signs off and it's confirmed that it's below the 7 foot before a TCO or a CO is issued, I would agree they satisfy, because what we're looking at is it 7 foot or more, or is it under 7 foot?
So basically what you're saying to the board at this point, Jeff, is that they don't have to show us how they do it, or plans that are going to...
I never thought they had to show how they're going to, whether they're going to raise the floor or drop the ceiling. It just has to be permanent.
And what's the
Okay.
definition of permanent? What's the definition of permanent?
That's going to be by the building official.
Okay, but may I, board entertain me talking out loud for a moment?
Please.
So that satisfies the building code requirements relative to how the building is constructed, what the end result is for ceiling height. But I don't know that that satisfies the board's understanding of how the space was supposed to be used in its final form, and why it granted the approval it did, and the understanding that approval was based on, that the basement was going to be unfinished storage,
Mechanical.
mechanical locations. And that's not specifically the floor area ratio problem, but it's tied to floor area ratio, because it talks about we don't count the space if it's under a certain height. But the board looked at how the space was going to be used, as well as its dimensions. And what the applicant has disclosed reflects differences from what the board understood it was approving, with the finished walls and the lighting, and now the mechanicals aren't down there.
A door, there's an interior door down there.
Laundry.
There's a separate laundry room.
Yeah, the building department may be happy, but I don't think the board is satisfied that they're meeting the intent of the approval, the intent of how the space was supposed to be used. So that's just, that's for everybody to think about, lawyers to argue over. I think there are two issues. One is, we have a technical building code thing about the size of the space. But I think we have a more intangible thing about what the board understood, how that space was supposed to be used, and active and not active. And again, the location of the mechanicals is a big deal.
Yeah.
So, that has nothing to do with the building department. It has nothing to do with what happens in the construction code.
And unfortunately, I think that your characterization of the problem and our concerns is accurate. But I think it has been compounded by the testimony that we have gotten in the past two hearings since the non-compliance has come in front of this board, that representations have been made to us, and only after questioning, those representations are in fact pulled back as being untrue. And the witnesses testifying to that have admitted that. So I don't think that we have the confidence that, given the way the basement has been finished so far, that in fact it will be maintained as unusable space because of the extent to which it has been finished and the extent to which it is open space for whatever purposes. So this is, in many ways, this is all of a piece with the way information or misinformation has been communicated to us and how we're assessing the situation as it stands.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, and respectfully, I don't know how you could possibly say that. Just think of this schematically. We walked in here and identified this problem to the board. We asked for permission to keep it this way. We brought in an FAR variance. When this board gave us the clear flavor that they don't want that, we withdrew it and said we would comply and we would install a permanent ceiling. That to me seems an elegant approach here, the way the system should work. There's none of this sort of misleading or any of that.
I think there's a certain amount of confidence lost, Mr. Broll, in everything regarding the testimonies we've heard and the lack of compliance with our resolution that they agreed to. There's just a lack of confidence at this point. And you've got a steep climb to meet that confidence level that we had already given the Hannahs. So I'm pretty sure that's the way most of us feel. It's just a confidence level. Even though you're new to the application and you said you've watched umpteen hours of testimony, there's just no confidence left in this board. We've asked for certain things, they have not been provided. And now we're being told that we have to imagine that these things will be done as long as the construction department has provided some type of CO to you. Or
That's their
TCO.
job, Mr. Chairman. What can I say?
So if
It's
I
an
were
act-
you guys, right, and I wanted to show good faith and restore confidence, I would have come in here with what we've asked for and say, listen, we're withdrawing the variance, but here's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna go before the building, just for us to see it.
And respectfully, there's no reason for this board to have any of that.
You're saying you shouldn't restore our confidence level in the...
I didn't say that, Mr.
Are you
Chairman.
willing
That's
to,
unfair.
are you willing to remove all the sheetrock walls? Are you willing to move the mechanicals back down to the basement?
Why would someone put mechanicals in a basement and
That's what
That's
you're
what was the
that's what
plan.
you're testified to.
Agreed to.
Right, but I'm telling you, like, I have professionals who will discuss this. What I'm telling you is we self-disclosed an issue, we asked for permission to maintain it.
I'm not sure that's true. Is it, Donna? They did not
It's
self-disclose.
absolutely true.
Well,
It's
I
absolutely
don't
true.
think so.
Right.
I don't think that is true. My conversations with Michelle Alonso indicate that the owner was contacted by the city. And because it's an active construction site, they can't actually write a violation letter. So it was done with a phone call and a meeting about the things that were outstanding, although, did you guys write a letter? Contact them about deviations from the plan?
We did.
So I don't understand this, we came in on our own, if you were contacted by both the city and the board.
That was my understanding, Mr. Pearl. There was no
I'll have a witness
self-disclosure.
address this, and I'll
But
address it very clearly.
regardless of who disclosed it, the facts remain that this board had hours of testimony regarding the basement. So let's take the ceiling height and the floor height out of it. This board had hours of testimony regarding what the basement's purpose was. And the mechanicals were gonna be housed there, it was gonna be unfinished. And now, 2 meetings ago or 3 meetings ago, we find out that it's finished, that there's now a separate room down there. Previous attorney gave us a statement that there was no rooms, i.e. a bedroom or e.g. a bedroom, but yet didn't disclose the fact that there was a separate room, a laundry room, and tries to make the distinction that, well, yes, there is another room, but it's not a bedroom. Again, it goes to that we have to treasure hunt for the facts with your expert by asking them questions. So again, regardless of who disclosed it, the facts remain that it's on you, the burden's on you and your client to show us why you didn't build the basement according to what was agreed upon. And I'm taking out the floor ceiling and height ceiling. It was supposed to be unfinished, the mechanicals were supposed to be housed there, and there was supposed to be no other rooms there. So maybe you can start there and we can move past disclosure and all of that, and maybe we can get something accomplished tonight.
Well, I think it's important we understand the disclosure, so Mr. Santori is the one who disclosed it, so he can speak to that.
Yeah, and good evening, everyone. I just wanted to clarify.
Does he need to be under oath?
He does not, he's an attorney, so
Okay.
he does not need to be under oath.
I just wanted to clarify just the one point with Ms. Miller, because Ms. Miller is right on most of it. And, from the items that obviously were brought to the Hannah's attention relative to whether it was siding deviation or those things and the like. But specifically on the FAR, we had figured out that it was wrong, and we had said, let's go and ask for the relief, and we disclosed the FAR. And that was never, and I had all these conversations with Ms. Alonso, myself, so none of that was, no one ever measured it, no one was in the basement, there was nothing in the construction report. The first disclosure of the item came from my submission when I submitted for the request for relief. So I had a conversation with Ms. Alonso, and I asked Ms. Alonso, I said, I have to notice for relief before the board. And we had this conversation the first time I was here. Can you please tell me the item specifically, because I'm not there, I'm not constructing it. There was never a notice or a letter that I received. I said I need to be able to make sure what I'm noticing for, and she went through a list. I wrote down the list, and that list became part of my application, and then I added in the FAR. So I just want, from a disclosure perspective, it's important to understand that the FAR thing, we brought it to the attention of the board to seek the relief. And then when we talk about the ceiling in and of itself, and I think it's important to understand, so a finished ceiling is required with TJI joists from a fire code perspective. So the finished ceiling was installed on that with sheetrock because that's what's required by code. So when we talk about the requirements of code versus the requirements of the board, all we're really trying to say is, listen, we understand you gave us an approval, and that approval was for 611. And we're going to bring the ceiling exactly like it was approved. When we talk about the rest of the finishing or finishing of walls, there was nothing in the resolution that precludes, like in other words, let's just hypothetically say he went to pull a basement permit to finish his basement 2 months after this CO was issued. There was nothing at all that would prohibit it. Not habitable, but you can sheetrock whatever you want to sheetrock. There's no requirement. It's just a, if you want to put lights up, you get an electrical permit, and it would have never been before the board. So it's not like anybody was trying to change or sneak anything in. Mr. Hanna is a person I've known for more than 10 years. If you go to his house, he has certain things crystal clean. He has a garage that looks like a floor in a house. So that's just the way he is. He likes his things neat and particular, and that's how he builds things at high level. So I just want to understand.
Mr. Santori, I'm going to stop you because I can't even anymore. I'm looking at an email that I received from Michelle Alonso on March 14th when she transmitted your application to my office. Team, this application is for changes made in the field for 704 4th Avenue. No new variances are triggered, but there are changes to the building materials and aesthetics. Also, they want to install a fence that has not yet been installed. I'm aiming to have this scheduled for. The building is finished, but we're not printing the COO or TCO. They would prefer sooner than later. It was after this email transmission that I pointed out that the ceiling height would trigger a variance, and that's why we then had further conversation about what the application was really for and what notice would be sufficient.
That was my understanding.
So I'm just going to say this whole treasure hunt that Mr. Scully pointed out, where someone at the city discovers something that they can see, and then you correspond and react to that, but we don't actually have full disclosure on your side.
Well,
we are constantly getting bits and pieces of information that we have to pull the thread up in order to find out what's really going on the property.
and specifically, just so you know, the submission I made says basement area is now finished as habitable based on ceiling height change to 711. The area was originally noted as unfinished. There is a building code notation that occurred during the final building inspection about sufficient head clearance, but
so again,
I'm telling you that it happened.
So you put it in plain sight, but it's
no. I'm just saying
it's a variance, and then so
Mr. Santori, you said
unfinished.
Sorry, Don, I mean to cut you off.
No,
so you said if somebody wanted to go and finish their basement or put up lights, they can go and do a permit. Did your client do that? Did he get specific permits to finish the basement?
He needs to.
It's a yes or no.
Or you
it's
don't
a yes
know.
or no. You said hypothetically, if somebody, wait, let me finish. You said if somebody wanted to finish and put electricals, they can get a permit.
For electrical.
Right.
But he already had electrical on the permit because he already had lights.
Not
Right.
the basement.
Not for the basement.
Yeah, of course you had lights
Those
on.
lights?
For recessed lights?
Recessed lighting, yes. Sheetrock ceiling, all
It's
that.
all on the plans.
Sheetrock walls?
Sheetrock walls, you don't need
A separate room?
You don't need a permit to put up sheetrock.
A separate room?
Laundry closet, you don't need a permit to put up a laundry.
Moving the mechanicals? The mechanicals were purposely discussed.
All right, so, all right.
We can go over it.
This is not getting us anywhere.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I just wanted to just try and help with the history, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Centauri.
No problem.
Mr. Prohl, we're going to have to proceed from here. Right now, you're just going back and forth with the board, and it's really not accomplishing a thing. So, I would like to speak to your architect. Can we have him come up?
I swear you in. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And if you would just state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
It's Daniel Wheaton, W-H-E-A-T-O-N.
Mr. Wheaton, could we have the benefit of your credentials as you are not the original architect on this project?
That is correct. So I am a registered architect and professional planner in the state of New Jersey. On this matter, I will be confining it to architectural testimony. I have been in conference with the architect Dan Canatore of Mode, so he's brought me up to speed on this. He apologizes that he could not be here. He had 2 flights canceled on him, the earliest one being this morning. So,
Mr. Wheaton, are you part of Mr. Canatore's office?
I am not. No,
You are not.
Correct. I am the owner of 1010 Architecture and longtime acquaintance of both Jay
And your
Dan.
license is in good fashion right now?
It is, correct, yes.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay. So a couple points. I'll focus on the basement. Obviously, that's what we're talking about here. I think the main focus. A few things that you see as a negative with the heating and air conditioning being moved to the attic. You should actually see it as a positive because I think.
Let's start with the basement.
Okay, sure. Well, that was the HVAC within the basement.
I know, but we need to start with the height and how
Okay.
it's going to be modified and what materials will be used and how permanent it is.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, this is not an issue of the board's jurisdiction at this point. It's an active construction site. We withdrawn the FAR. There's nothing for the board to take action on. With due respect.
So, Mr. Prohl, you directing your witness not to answer
I
the
am
question?
not directing it. I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I've made this fairly clear. We're going to continue, but your board counsel has already given you that opinion as well. So I'm just letting that note for the record.
Jeff, I'm a little confused. So we're not allowed to ask the architect questions in regards to this issue?
Mr. Prohl just said we're proceeding, so.
Okay.
So as a part of there's 2 different details supplied to the board. Revised sheet A1, supplying 2 different.
Which plan is that, please? Can you tell us exactly?
So it's floor plans at sheet A-1.
Yeah, what's the last revision, and just so we know what you're referring
Version
to?
number 4, it says 6/6 of 2023.
Sorry?
6/6/2023.
Yeah. Revision number 4.
We did receive updated plans, correct? Is that the date? Architectural. And is that the date that you have?
What date is this?
This says there's a 6/6/2023.
Okay, so this is the original. Oh, 2023?
Yeah, and then I have 6.
This is the one we're referring to. Version 466.
Sorry, just give me some notes. We have it up on the screen.
It's on the screen. It's all right.
Jeff, wasn't there an issue with lowering the ceiling, made some issue with the staircase or something?
And the window.
And the window?
That's what they testified originally.
Yes.
That was what the original issue was, yes. Yes. And I had a conversation with the construction official. And the construction official says, I don't care how high the headroom is, it doesn't matter to me from a construction standpoint. I don't know if that really has any bearing either way on the application.
Thank you.
So if you could zoom in, the lower right-hand corner is the two details supplied. Oh, there, just 1 second.
Yeah.
So they are both ceilings that are affixed below the existing floor system. Either one, so option number 1 is a I-joist, essentially a floor system that's...
Can you either talk louder or speak into that?
Okay, sorry. There we go. So option 1 is essentially a double floor system, right, where we're doing I-joists, which are the wooden joists that get bolted to the underside of the floor system and then finished with the sheetrock. As was testified earlier, a single layer of sheetrock is required to provide a fire safety rating for any I-joists. And option number 2 is a metal grid system that essentially achieves the same thing. It's a drywall system that gets mounted to the walls and to the ceiling. So there are two different options to get to the same result. And both of them will have a finished head height of 6'11", which is less than the 7 foot, which is the legal head height for the building code for a habitable space. So there are essentially two methods of lowering the ceiling in a permanent manner.
I have a question, maybe it's my ignorance, but when I look at the printing for each of these 3 units, in the rear 2 units, it talks about a slab and a vapor barrier over, gravel, over compacted soil. I don't see that was ever even done in that first unit.
So it's shown in the 1 unit, but it was going to be consistent through all of the units. So you typically do finish this. It adds moisture resistance, and there's a variety of other options why a slab, even in a crawl space, is unusual. We typically do what's called a rat slab, which is 2 inches of concrete. It acts as a more solid moisture barrier from any water getting into the room.
I guess I'm asking, is that...
It was intended for all 3 units.
In all 3?
Yes. Yeah, from a construction standpoint, they were always intended to be identical units, essentially, from a construction standpoint.
And is the grid option that you referred to, is that basically similar to a hung drop ceiling?
No, not in the way that you picture where you can push up individual tiles. In a typical drop ceiling, you have a metal grid where the tiles sit within that. You can pop them in and out. This is not that system. This is essentially what you're screwing the drywall to. So the grid sits up in the above space, for lack of a better term, the attic space up above, and drywall gets screwed to it. So either one would, from within that room, appear visually identical. So it's similar to, you can see the 2 systems here, where it's kind of more of a tan color. That is installed in the same way, whereas this is what you're thinking of for a standard drop ceiling. But to you, me, anybody else, that's a suspended ceiling, most likely, I'm guessing, but that's the finish you would see within that.
I keep asking the questions again, going to the real permanence of the ceiling. Again, once a CO is issued, what's to say that it just doesn't go in and sledgehammer and take out the sheetrock?
I mean, you could argue that in any solution, right? So
well, it was any solution except the other solution that we had asked to see plans for, which was pouring concrete to raise the floor.
Yes, but you could take that out also, realistically. I mean, how difficult is it? Like, yeah, but they both require an act of defiance towards the board, but effort, right? It's not it's not a drop ceiling like this that you can just pop off with and undo a few screws, right? It would require substantial destruction of the existing structure.
And again, going back to that, or if I may, I don't know, going back to that other option that we had requested, could you tell us why the floor could not have been filled and raised?
It really introduces, from a technical standpoint, it's very challenging. One, to try and get concrete in there through essentially a finished construction site. To get that volume in there is not practical anyway. There's no way to get a sled with the concrete going through. And it also starts to introduce a lot of moisture into essentially a finished building, which creates the possibility of mold and other issues. One other possibility that was discussed was building a wood floor up, which is a lot simpler to do. But once again, you're now trapping air in there. So a wood floor can't be built per code because it doesn't allow for the natural ventilation. It doesn't meet the requirements of crawl space. So either one of those solutions, anything trying to bring the floor up really introduces the problem of moisture, mold containment, which will have long-term negative health benefits on the project.
Thank you, Mr. Whedon. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
Mr. Whedon, are there any issues with mechanicals with the floor being added as opposed to the ceiling?
From a mechanical standpoint, no, I don't see any issues with that.
Any further questions from the board for Mr. Whedon? Board professionals? Is there anybody in the public
I'm sorry,
that,
are you going to address any of the other building changes?
Specifically what?
The other changes that were made to the building that are
The
different
porches,
from the
maybe?
approved plan?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll ask your direction here, since we kind of went out of the order. I planned to follow
I mean, he's the
Insights.
architect, I don't want to.
Right, yeah, I wanted to follow Insights letter, I guess the board professionals letter.
I understand that, Mr. Poe, but the reason why we wanted to start with the basement was because that is the biggest bone of contention for the board. The other areas, while they're more involved in some aspects, they are not as contentious as the basement is.
And that's why we withdrew it, so just so you know. And Mr. Chairman, what I was suggesting here is by circling back to this list, we can go through this list.
That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Before we dismiss Mr. Whedon, I also, if we need to, we would like to call you back, Mr. Whedon.
Absolutely, yes.
But is there anybody in the public who would like to ask Mr. Whedon any questions regarding his testimony only? Thank you.
Yep.
So, Mr. Prohl, it's back in your court.
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do is bring up the applicant, Joseph Hanna, and have him speak to the board. He'll have to be sworn. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Mr. Hanson.
Hello, Mr. Hanna.
You would?
Yeah, sure.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And spell your last name, please.
Hanna.
So Mr. Hanna has a story to tell, and I'm going to let him tell it. But first, I'm going to ask him a couple questions. And you own the property, Mr. Hanna, and through what entity?
I do. Ocean View Developments. Yeah, that's sorry.
That's interesting. Go on.
So, and
Too many to think of, huh?
what's your intentions with respect to this property in terms of you and your family?
We're occupying the first unit, and the other 2 units are going to be rented out.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to ask you to generally explain what you did at the property, what's going on, and I'll leave it to you to have a conversation with the board.
What do you mean when I did? I built a 3-family house.
Right, but in terms of the issues that are here.
Which one?
Well, let's
Why don't you start him off so you...
with respect to the permeable asphalt request that you are asking for in the rear, can you discuss that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we haven't done anything in the rear, by the way. The base for the blacktop is down in the driveway. The driveway is supposed to be blacktop, and the back is supposed to be permeable pavers. Pavers don't work back there. They don't work. It's, an easy way to put it, it's like putting tile on a carpet floor. There's 3/4 inch stone back there, and that's for the permeability for water to perk through. The engineer is calling for an inch of sand on top of it and then pavers on top of that. I mean, it's just pure logic. The first rainstorm, what happens to an inch of sand on top of 3/4 inch clean stone? They're large stones that are back there. It's going to wash away. And
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Then why did you agree to it?
Because I didn't know.
But you're a sophisticated.
I'm not an engineer. I'm not a sophisticated
builder. You're a sophisticated developer.
And you had a
Developer, not a builder.
And you have professionals on staff, or not on staff, but
And I
on
trust
the team.
them. But when you're on site and you look at something and you go, this doesn't make sense, and contractors are telling you this is not going to work, they're constantly going to pop out, they're constantly going to move.
But you had engineers and architects sitting here and presented before us, Mr. Hanna, that I would assume that you vetted to the best of your ability, that you would trust that they would say something that wouldn't be a problem for you. That doesn't make sense.
If I could, this is the great thing about this moment, is we've come here to ask for permission. It's just an
No,
organic.
you're asking for forgiveness
I will
again,
not.
Mr. Pearl, not permission.
The pavers are not in, and nor is the asphalt.
The pavers are-
We're
the pavers
asking
are
if
not
we
in.
can change the plan
The pavers
before
are
we
not
do
in.
anything.
I'm telling
There's
you guys,
nothing
it
in
does
there.
not work. It's going to be a hazard. Pavers are going to come up. It's a public safety issue, and it's fine. If you guys want me to put the pavers in, I'll put them in. I like the way pavers look better. I went back, which you guys will see from the plans, and I wanted the whole property to be pavers because I like the way pavers look.
But that was
But it doesn't
the
work.
intention. That's
Excuse
correct.
me?
That was the intention originally.
No,
correct?
the intention originally was a blacktop driveway with pavers in the back for the stormwater retention system.
Agreed.
I went back and I said, no, I want pavers throughout the whole property because I like the way pavers look. But it'll work in the blacktop area because conventionally when you put down pavers, it's crushed concrete, which makes a solid surface, an inch of sand goes on top of that, and the paver goes on top of that. So it'll work in the driveway area where water doesn't have to permeate through it, but in the area in the back of the parking lot where it needs water to permeate through it, so you have to use the 3/4 inch stone, and you can't use a crushed concrete tamped down, it doesn't work.
But you just said that you're willing to do whatever the board wants. So the board's already giving you instruction in our resolution as to what to do with the driveway, so why are we even discussing it? Why are you even asking?
What do you mean what to do with
We're
the driveway?
asking
The
for
driveway's
permission to
blacktop.
change.
But that's different than what your client just said. Your client just testified that he will do whatever the board wants. If the board wants pavers, he'll put pavers. The board's already told him and approved in a resolution what to put there. So then why are we even discussing this?
We're in an active construction site. He wants to make a modification.
So then
He was
he's not
directed
so
to
he's
come
not
this
willing to
board
do
for
so.
that.
So if I'll correct his testimony for him, he's not willing to do what the board has already approved.
That's incorrect. I think that's an unfair characterization.
No.
You have the email in front of you, A2 there is, or A3, sorry, is the conversation that went back and forth between the professionals. He made the ask to them. They said, based on the chair's recommendation, come before the board and make the ask. That's why we're here. It's a legitimate, honest
When
ask.
I
If
realized
the board says no, then the board says no. But don't
So-
fault him for doing the right thing.
Can I just ask? I'm hearing you that the pavers don't work.
Yeah,
I like the way they look also.
yeah.
I'm taking you guys at your word that they don't work. What else can be used besides porous asphalt? Is there something else out there
Permeable blacktop.
besides that?
I heard our engineer mention that there was permeable concrete. I'm not aware of that. I never heard of permeable concrete, but I guess that's another option. So I think it's permeable concrete, permeable blacktop, or pavers on top of sand and 3/4 inch stone.
Doug, do you have input to what might be an alternate option besides the pavement, the permeable pavement?
I think those three are probably it: permeable concrete, permeable pavers, or porous asphalt.
How do you feel about concrete? Do you not like how that looks?
No, I don't know anything about it. I just learned about it in the last testimony to my engineer when he mentioned those three things. So I would have to look into it. But I don't think concrete will look good. I mean, it's white concrete with a blacktop driveway. That's not going to look very good. I mean, look, I
mean,
live
you were
here. This is
leading-
my
you were-
house.
Concrete can be tinted, it can be.
Yeah, it could be colored, but you were leading to.
I've never heard of tinted concrete. You could paint concrete, but the paint's just going to lift.
No,
Because
it's tinted.
Yeah, you can, it gets thrown in
I've
there.
never seen that before.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look into it, but what's the point of doing concrete as opposed to blacktop?
So can I just understand the issue with the pavers?
Yeah. Yeah.
There was some talk at the last meeting.
I'm still confused why it doesn't work. Could you explain that a little bit better to me, Doug?
This contractor says it won't.
No, not, well, my contractor said it won't, but it actually won't. I mean, my business partner's here, he's a sophisticated builder, you know, 30-plus years, you could ask him.
What is it about that it doesn't work, Mr. Hanna? I'm still
The
confused.
sand is gonna fall through, the sand is what holds the pavers together.
Is there a possibility, is there meshing that could be put on top of the 3/4 inch?
There's a fabric on it, but the sand is very fine. So as soon as it rains, that sand is gonna diminish. And,
Doug,
and-
can you speak to any of this?
I mean, the way I look at it, it's like putting tile on a carpet floor.
I hear you. I'm just trying to get to
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I'm looking back at the detail from the previous approved plans. It doesn't look like there was a liner between the sand bedding and the 3/4 inch stone below it, but in my experience, I believe there should be one there, and if there is one there, I don't see why it wouldn't work properly.
They know better.
It would still drain.
Yes.
It would
Yeah.
still allow for the sand to hold the pavers in place.
Yep,
And it would still provide for that retention or runoff.
correct.
You don't think the sand will diminish when it rains? You don't think the sand will fall through the
Well, he's saying
3/4
the
inch
DCL
stone?
needs to have a filter fabric liner.
Even with a filter fabric?
It's designed to not let particles through, but allows moisture through.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of applications where pervious pavers have been applied in
On what type of base? The problem that I have is the base, not the pavers.
okay.
If I could do crushed concrete under it, which I understand I can't, I would do the whole property in pavers.
Why can't we do crushed concrete? Is there?
Because it doesn't let
does
the
any-
water permeate through with the type of stormwater retention system that we have.
Doug?
Well, it looks like there was 8-inch perforated pipe
Yeah.
initially proposed.
In the back, that's where the leader drains go.
I mean, I'm sure there's some material that could be used with enough void space to store the water that doesn't involve, if the 3/4 inch stone is the issue, I'm sure there's.
Like a dry well system, you're saying? Where's the dry well system that it dispersed to is the problem.
Right.
I mean, look, guys, I'm not a professional. I'm not a
We're trying to get
professional
there,
builder.
right?
Okay,
We're
so you know,
Right,
I'm not an
and
engineer
these are
either.
engineering questions,
Yeah,
Mr.
that's
Hanna.
why that's why I'm asking him.
And again, I also don't understand, we raised
Okay,
these
but-
questions at the last
Okay,
meeting.
but let's-
The engineer was here, I don't know why in the intervening 6 weeks or whatever it's been, you didn't make any inquiries or get any further.
I let the professionals talk. I let the engineers speak. I mean,
But the
I probably
engineer
should have
gave
came
us,
up
didn't
before
give us this
myself.
reason for,
Right.
we didn't, this is brand new to us, Mr. Hanna.
I'm sorry
now.
that you're hearing it this late.
The
I should
engineer.
have spoke the first, second, and third time.
Because the
I understand that.
engineer, if you recall, told us that it was a warranty issue.
It's not.
That one of the companies would give you a warranty,
no,
and the other
it is
companies
a
wouldn't.
warranty
And then
issue.
he took that back.
It is a warranty issue, but I'm not gonna talk about that because we've already discussed that. You guys don't care.
But the point is,
It's not a maintenance
you're
issue.
raising a brand new situation to us, why the pavers is not a viable solution to your,
And I want
The
to,
only
I want to
board-
hear from my professional, our professional,
Yeah.
how we can make this possibly work.
The only thing I can say is I'm sorry. I should have came up here last time. I don't tell you. I should
but
have
these
done
are
the
your
talking, but-
professionals,
Okay,
Mr.
I
Hanna.
think Doug-
If they are not prepared to speak to us, why are we having these meetings?
They should be prepared to speak to you. They're professionals. Like, I don't tell you, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's their job. Like, if
Yes, that's their job, but you're the one who's hired them to speak on your behalf.
correct.
I'll just say, Mr. Hanna's here, he's concerned that the pavers can come uneven.
Okay,
And there's tenants there, people trip, that's all. It's, if you say no, you say no. Like, we're just asking permission here, that's all. This isn't built out yet.
But you need, the board needs the time, this is brand new information now, Mr. Kroll. This is brand new to the board, we're reconsidering the whole concept
Yes.
again. This is like a new application that you brought to us. So we're not prepared to say what's good, what's bad, what's okay, what's not okay. We're asking our engineer for input because this is new.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I
Doug?
agree with that.
If the issue is the base, and there's a base that can be agreed on, that a certain crushed stone that you feel confident in that will hold the sand?
There was one that I obviously brought this problem up months ago before we were ready to put and he said there was a Schedule 40 crushed concrete or something like that could be used, but no yards had it. It doesn't exist in New Jersey, so I tried looking for it.
Mr. Wilder would like to speak on
No.
this if you have.
No, we're gonna finish my testimony. No more talking.
Doug,
Go ahead.
sorry. If they put the layer of material between the base and the sand, in your opinion, do you think that would help to mitigate any of the sand being lost and the pavers moving?
I do.
And do you feel that even just regular crushed concrete could be used for this application? The driveway application, not this application?
Yeah, it would be up to their engineer to.
Okay, so I think the engineer should come up. He's saying we can't put the filter.
Hold on one second.
Wait, can't hear.
Go ahead, Doug, I'm sorry.
If the base is changing, it has a different void ratio, as long as the calculations are provided that it can store enough of the volume, then yeah, I don't have an issue with using a different base.
Would the calculations have to change if they use that material, or would it be the same calculations?
We're trying to get there.
I know. I think my engineer should talk. I get what he's. I think the problem is the new stormwater regulations, and I'm not taking this away from Doug. I'm sure he knows about this just as much as my engineer or any other engineer. But there's specific calculations for the stormwater to be able to permeate through the ground.
Understood,
Because
but
he's saying
there's-
you can't use the fabric.
Right, so can I real quick?
No.
Doug, what's up with the fabric?
Mr. Wilder, we have to finish with one testimony at a time. I appreciate that you want to jump in.
I mean, after what you guys said, I'm not
But
doing this.
Mr. Hanna has to go from one point to another, and we have to be consistent. We cannot, he's provided new information. I don't even know if we're prepared to give you an answer at this point, Mr. Prohl. So.
I'm not sure what the issue is with the fabric. I know there's some fabrics that are not permeable, there's others that are. I'm not sure what they're getting at.
Yeah.
I think we should hear from their engineers.
I think the other problem is it's tough to get a lot of this stuff in New Jersey. Like that's Schedule 40 crushed concrete. A lot of these yards just don't have that stuff. It's I don't know.
If I may, it's just a linear ask. If we've asked for permeable asphalt, if that's not going to work for the board, we'll continue on
It's
with
not
the
that
plan.
I just want to correct, I'm trying to get to the pavers. And if it's the base that's the problem, and we can find a better base or something that works, because the 3/4-inch rock doesn't allow for storage of the sand, and we can't use a fabric, then what can we use to get him to what he wants? He likes the paver look. We like the porous paver. So how do we get there? That's all I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. Maybe if you guys want to let the engineer, if you guys just want to get off this topic, we'll go back to it so we can jump on some of the other stuff.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
We will have to eventually call your engineer and
this way
discuss
they
it
can figure
further.
it out.
But I don't even know where we're going at this point, other than to say we may have to carry this again.
I don't want to carry this again.
Yeah, so the next issue, of course, and I'm just following.
I mean, I want to move into my house, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
We're trying.
The next issue we have on following the insight letter is the front sidewalk that turns and connects to the driveway, whereas the original approval had a straight sidewalk connecting to the front sidewalk. How did that come about?
well, I wanted the sidewalk to go off to the side. In fact, the previous house that we had taken down to put this house at had the sidewalk off to the side. I thought it was easier for my family. They're not gonna be able to park on the street. On-street parking, as you guys know, is impossible. So pull in, drop off the kids, drop off the groceries, whatever, and then go park in the back, as opposed to having to come in from the street. I mean, I didn't really care one way or another, personally, so I just asked my engineer. I said, is it possible that I could do this? He said he'd have to reach out to the city. He reached out to the engineer. He got the approval from the engineer, said it was okay. And then I said, great. Sent the surveyor, staked out the property. A couple of weeks went by. It was inspected during that time, and then it was poured.
Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we had this discussion last time, and you confirmed that you did not give your approval to not do the drive. You gave the approval to do a side driveway, but not to eliminate
Not driveway, pathway.
the pathway, but not to eliminate the pathway to the right of way.
Yeah, I mean, what I've said may have been misconstrued a little. I think I mean, what I said was that I took no issue from an engineering standpoint to certain grading and drainage changes on the property. Michelle Alonso pointed out a few others. But, you know, if from an engineering standpoint, I did not have an issue with the changing of the...
No, but I know we had this discussion, Doug, that there were several changes that were being made to the property, and that's how we got back to this situation where you wrote a letter.
One of many other things.
One of many letters, and because we had always thought of the sidewalk going from, the path going from the sidewalk to the front of the house to match the rest of the neighborhood, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Donna, you had a question?
Yeah, so the approved plan had a walkway between the front porch and the driveway. So they wouldn't have needed a second separate walkway from the front porch to the driveway. It already was designed. It came right off the side of the porch, connected directly to the driveway. So I don't know what Mr. Hanna's
Mr. Pearl and
saying.
Mr. Hanna, I think our board chairman said it. All the other houses, I should say all the houses, most of the other houses in the neighborhood have a walkway that goes from the front of the house out to the right of way. And that's what was approved. If there was a miscommunication or a misunderstanding by you as to what our board professional said, it was not approved to remove the walkway out to the right of way by the board.
And I believe your pictures that you provided to us of what was potentially the look of the design of the house had a pathway from the sidewalk.
Correct. Yeah.
I believe all your pictures showed that.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Again, if it was an issue and they said no, it's fine. I mean, it wasn't a big thing to me. I didn't really, it was just something I came up with when I was on the site. I was like, okay, this might be easier to get in and out of the place.
Are you willing to?
I rely on my professionals.
Are you willing
to rectify it and add a sidewalk
I
that goes
definitely
to the
agree
right
with
of
you
the
guys.
way?
It'll definitely fit the character of the neighborhood. I mean, now that I look around, I kind of noticed that everybody has
So that's a yes, you will?
Yeah.
You don't have to take the other one out, marry them and just put...
The only thing I ask is if we could do like maybe bluestone, like a bluestone kind of walkway, stepping stone, so my whole front yard doesn't look like just a concrete boneyard.
What's the material of the sidewalk?
Concrete.
walkway?
It's concrete.
I don't want to do another concrete thing, so maybe we could do something in bluestone that's a little nicer.
The problem is, Mr. Hanna, is that, again, this is a new issue now, and you're asking us to approve materials that we have no pictures of, we have no dimensions on.
Okay.
So all we can
Regardless,
advise you
one way or
is...
another, the answer is yes. I will put some sort of walkway from the...
But it's not some sort of walkway, it's the walkway that was approved in the initial resolution. The last thing we would want is for all of us to reconvene at a later time because you're not in compliance and you put a different walkway in. So I just want to be clear that it's not some walkway, it's the walkway that was approved, unless you want to come back at a later time and we'll carry this with pictures and information on the different materials and the board can consider that.
Yeah, I don't want to come back at a later time.
Yeah, that was the point.
Fine. I'm just trying to do something that looks better.
Okay, so we're clear that it's
And we'll
the
make it
walkway.
subject to your professional's approval, so.
Okay, thank you.
Can I give your professionals a couple examples of like bluestone or?
No, again, it's what was approved in the resolution. If you want to change that, you have to come back in front of this board again. This is to the chairman's comment about the pavers. This is a new issue that you're asking us to now review.
Without
Right, but
really
as a homeowner-
our time to review it. You're hitting us up with something brand new each
Understood.
time, and
We'll
we
build
haven't even had
consistent
time to
plan, Mr.
review it.
So, Mr. Pearl, just so we're clear, you're
Consistent with the plan, yes.
thank you.
Redesign of the side covered porches, the engineer wrote. Can you explain how that came about? Okay, we're gonna put that one off till one of our professionals comes
Yeah,
up.
the house got lifted, the elevation got lifted, the steps had to be redone. I know Doug touched up on that last time, that there was, in fact, multiple elevation changes. It wasn't one, and they had to kind of reconfigure the steps to be able to work with the height of the new front door height or something along those lines.
No, this is the depth.
I'm confused.
This is the depth.
The depth of the porches.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a professional that's going to testify to that one, so I'll go on to the next one. It's the style of fence. You wanted to propose to put a fence with a gate. What's the reason for that?
I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, I think this is probably one of the most dangerous cities in the state of New Jersey. Like, it's for protection.
Mr. Hanna, your planner testified the last time she was here, and I'll paraphrase because obviously I can't remember that far back, but I do remember that she testified that the reason for the community is that they wanted an open setting and they wanted a welcoming community and they wanted the project to be welcoming. And I actually questioned her. I said, well, if that's the case, then why are you putting up a gate? And her testimony was contradictory with regards to that. And as is yours.
I can tell you why.
Well, his testimony is subjective, right? That's what it was his opinion versus an expert. So his personal concerns are that's his perception.
Well, there's a couple things, right? Like, it was for safety purposes. And also I have 2 large dogs. That was the reason I wanted to put up a fence.
Again, there are no
Is that what you're asking me?
there
Why
are
I
no
want to
other
put a fence?
properties
Yes.
on that block that have fences like that.
A sliding gate across the
Sliding
driveway.
gated fences, none.
Okay.
Okay, number one. And number two, again, I don't understand.
But then
why
again, there's
you
not a lot of
undertake-
brand new homes in the area either.
Excuse me?
There's not a lot of brand new homes in the area
There's
either.
a lot of brand new
That's not
homes
true.
and renovated
4th Avenue?
homes.
Yes.
Oh,
There's
yes.
plenty.
I'm very
There's
familiar with
plenty.
Asbury.
But that's not relevant. An older home could
Yeah.
want
You
to
have
put
no
a gate
idea.
across the driveway. Whether the home is new or not is irrelevant.
And if you want to contain your dogs, you can apply to the department for a fence in the front yard and see what your setback is and what the allowability
That's
is.
what
You
I
don't
thought
need a
too.
sliding driveway gate for that.
We'll do that later, so.
Okay.
We hear you about the fence, we hear you about the gate.
What'd you say?
so.
I said I can speak from experience, that was what I have done. Fenced in my front yard for my dogs.
Okay. So your problem is the gate? You guys don't like the gate? Is that what it is?
It's a
The
sliding
motorized-
gate in front of the driveway.
In front of the
Okay, so get
driveway,
rid of it. It's no-
absolutely.
No big deal. Get rid of it. If you guys don't like it, it's fine.
Thank you.
The next issue are the
Mr.
several.
Pearl, I don't mean to, but was there an issue that your applicant was trying to change the style of fence or the material? Or that was not an issue? If I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
Well, there's a style of fence, but I don't believe the fence.
It's a black aluminum fence, is what I was proposing. I'm open to that, I'll listen if you guys.
I'll just
think
know
so.
Mr. Hanna has several conversations with the neighbors, he's actually worked things out quite well with them. I know there was some concerns about what was being built here. He's engaged them very professionally. He's worked with them on shrubs and stuff like that. I mean, it's just,
We'll get
actually.
to that, I guess, right? We'll get to the shrubbery and the landscape.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, there's been a lot of conversation, nice conversation with the neighbors. He's trying to be a good neighbor there. So the fencing is yet another, but do you have any?
So originally, it had been approved for, basically, they were going to relocate some existing fencing on the side property lines.
All right.
And I guess over the course of, again, all these negotiations with the neighbor, they've just come up with, we're just going to put in new fence. And that originally, they were going to do some section of new fence, but it wasn't going to come all the way out to the front property line. It was going to be kind of in line with the front porch area. So we would have to better understand, fine if he wants to do black aluminum, picket style, how high is it? How far does it extend? Is it
Where's the
50%
setback in the
open?
yard?
What's the,
Yeah, we would just abide by whatever the ordinance says for fencing.
Well, there are options, so we would need to know what you want to do.
Well, we're not asking for any reliefs or variances for fences, so whatever is the ordinance allows
But
us to do.
So you have to,
You have to pick a style and a height.
Black aluminum, and I think the height is a max of 4 feet, I believe, right?
In the front,
Okay.
To the edge of the house.
Oh, okay. So, and then the sides are 6 feet? The sides could be
The
6
back
feet
of the
high?
house, from the
well,
back.
he's an interior lot, he's allowed
Yeah.
to be 6 foot up to the front building line.
Right.
Okay, so then, yeah, 6 foot and 4 foot in front.
You feel that that would keep your dog, that would, I won't
Well,
say much.
Say that again?
So that, this is on the perimeter of the lot. If he's going to enclose part of the front yard, we need to better understand,
Where is that
where is
fence?
that going? How does it tie back in?
Is
Where
that
does
on
it
the plans?
close?
I
So,
think, is that on the plans? Where there should be a fence drawn out on the plans? Or-
No, there was no front yard fence in the original plan.
you covered the sides
Yes.
in the plan.
Because there are also two other two other dwelling units.
Right.
On the
Right,
revised
this is the three-family.
People have to be
Yes.
able
But their entrances are on the side.
Yeah.
What's that?
The entrances
They're on the side.
Correct.
So as
It
long as
won't
he
affect
takes
them.
out the driveway gate,
Right.
that's not an impediment
It won't
anymore for
affect
the
them.
other tenants.
There would obviously have to be a gate where the entrance, the new sidewalk in the front and the end.
Right.
How big
No,
are your
Not
dogs?
obviously, it does
How
not.
big are your
I got a
dogs?
German short hair pointer and a chocolate lab. They're like 60, 70 pounds.
70
Maybe
pounds.
75.
And you feel that the 6-foot fence will keep them inside?
No, you can't do a 6 foot.
You can't do a 6 in the
6 foot
front.
in the front.
It'd be a
Front,
4.
okay, so how do we keep the dogs inside?
Probably not, but it'll be better than nothing.
I mean, rights of Dalmatians are fine with 3.5 feet, like, they're, you know.
So help me understand, because there's a lot of talk back and forth on the fence. So I understand black aluminum. The fence is only going to be along the side up until the house in the back. There's going to be no fence across the front yard.
No, he wants a fence across the front yard.
Well, he's asked for a fence across the front yard. What we understand is the board is not willing to entertain that. If he can, he'll go back to the building department and make the appropriate
Well,
application.
what we said,
The zoning,
no, we
he has to go to the
said,
zoning department for the fence.
we said we don't want the sliding
Yes.
You want the gate.
across the driveway. We didn't say that you couldn't have a fence
that's what I
around the
took
front
as well.
yard. We did not say that.
But it has to comply
But
with
with
what
the- right.
zoning department allows for, how far it is off the right of way.
That's what I was
height.
saying before. I'll abide by whatever the zoning department is, whatever the height.
But we need to know the design of it, we need to know the height of it, the setback locations.
There is a fence shown on the revised plans.
Yeah, I thought.
Because they're asking for it now.
Right.
And what's the setback on
Is there a
that?
leaf for that?
Does
It's
it
on the
say?
property line, it incorporates the gate across the driveway.
I just want to understand
Yeah.
the gate.
You are, that's what you have to ask.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I think,
Well, that's,
I don't want to separate him going separately for one type of fence for one area. He came in for site plan approval, let's get it all together. And I think he needs to figure out the alignment of the fencing for his front yard, for
Yes.
his dogs.
It's a foot off the property line, it's gonna be consistent with the ordinance and zoning.
I think we could just take that off this relief, or I'll just abide by whatever's allowed.
I don't know that we could necessarily do that, Mr. Hannah,
Why not?
because the original resolution talks about certain fences. So while we're dealing with this.
Does the resolution,
The resolution identifies specific
is
fences.
there a fence in the front yard in the resolution?
No.
no.
No, it covered your side and back, I
It
believe.
just,
So I have an existing fence right now that covered the side and the back. So it was a wood fence that was put in prior to my ownership with the old house. We took it down to put landscaping up, instead, like green arborvitae's.
And that was in discussion with your neighbors, correct?
That was in discussion with neighbors. She's got
she had hydrangeas, that-
Yeah.
yeah,
hydrangeas.
yeah, I understand.
Yep.
So we wanted to work with Jerry and his wife to do like a multi-layer hydrangea kind of tier border between both.
So if I'm looking at your house, that's the left-hand side, correct?
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about a fence there? You've taken care of that? Is that?
Well, this
Our
proposal
understanding?
does have a fence going over there, but like I said, maybe we should just stop talking about that because I don't want to, I don't know how the fence is going to work with the hydrangeas there.
I'm trying to clarify. I thought, my understanding was you weren't going to put a fence there any longer because you worked something out with your neighbors.
That was for the landscape.
Okay.
Her hydrangeas are on, excuse me one second.
No, let me interject here, just so everyone understands while we're talking about this. The resolution specifically says all fences constructed at the premises will be of wood construction. So if we're looking to alter any fences, we need to deal with that.
We need to hear it.
Now.
Okay.
All right.
So are you looking to alter the approval that was given to you in the resolution with regards to fences?
No.
So there's going to be no fences?
fence.
If there is a fence, it has to be of wood material? Is that what you said?
It says wood. So if you're gonna look to do a, even if it's in the front, if you're gonna look to do a metal fence, we need to modify the resolution to allow it.
Right.
Right.
Right, I don't think that this is not a situation where you can go ask for a fence permit separately to evade the terms of the resolution that we have.
Yeah, and that's disagree with the evading, but we do ask permission now to change the style of fence from wood to the black metal.
But if
aluminum.
Mr. Hanna is saying take the fence off the table, then it's take a fence off the table and not go to the zoning office for a fence permit,
Other than what?
2 months from now.
Other than what?
Other than what?
Other than wood and what is in the original
But
resolution.
if you want to change it, let's talk about it and change
That's
it
what I'd
now.
like to do, because I can hear that there's a conversation needs to be had. The approval obviously is for wood. We would like to have black aluminum. And consistent with the plan, it's just a different style of material. And we will have it come across the front, consistent with the ordinance, 1 foot back, I think, off the property line. But that's obviously for dogs and it'll address all the concerns I think we've discussed.
And not across the driveway.
And not across the driveway.
But I thought we didn't approve it across the front yard. So that's
There's nothing,
No, I don't think
they
we talked
hadn't
about it.
proposed it originally.
You're right.
Here's the
Develop
thing,
it.
he has the right to put a fence across the front yard.
Right.
The dilemma is, the resolution says only wood. So if Mr. Hanna wants to put the black aluminum with the opening no more than 4 foot, whatever is allowed by the ordinance, we just need to identify that as to what's allowed, and the location.
I mean, if it's better for the board, I could do wood on the 3 sides and do black aluminum in the front.
It's not for us, it's for you. So if you want to change it, let's change it now. Like, you want the black aluminum?
Another question. Donna, I don't remember black aluminum as one of the fence designs that we approved for the ordinance. Is that true?
I don't think it's disallowed, like we specifically say you can't use white vinyl in the front yard.
Right, okay.
But metal picket is an approved style.
Okay.
Color is not.
White picket an approved style, like, because you're saying it's not approved to do plastic, what is it called?
White vinyl fence is
So is
not,
white vinyl picket not approved?
if it's
Or are
white
you just
vinyl
saying
picket,
solid white vinyl?
in the front yard. Any type of, and again, the front yard can only be an open style and it has to be
Yeah, that
limited
makes
height.
sense.
So, yeah, so a white picket fence 4 feet high
Right.
would be permitted
Yeah,
as
that's
long
what
as
my
it's
neighbor
not vinyl.
I just wanted some
So
clarification.
if it's not vinyl, what
Not
other
vinyl,
material would it be?
So if
Wood.
Mr. Hanna
You're gonna
wants
picket.
to do
That's fine.
the fencing across the front yard,
I have a white wood picket fence, yeah.
White wood picket fence?
if Mr. Hanna wants to do a fence across the front
I
yard,
can do that.
the way the revised plan shows, he has to modify it so that it doesn't cross the driveway, so we don't want the gate. But he does have to put a gate in where the walkway from the front porch to the sidewalk
Right.
Has
is.
access.
Right.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Can I just,
But
in the front?
just to answer some questions, the black aluminum is not allowed. It's,
Yes.
right? Did I say that right?
Correct.
It's not prohibited.
Yeah.
He can use it.
I believe so.
Okay.
If there's no gate, the fence isn't, the yard's not gonna be closed, right?
Well, he's got to tie it back.
Yeah, he's got to
this
tie it
corner.
back.
He'll follow I presume he would follow the edge of the driveway.
It has to cross the driveway at some point, doesn't it?
No.
No, but it's
He's
going
got
to
a gate
cross those
here.
other sidewalks.
It's gonna
We're
cross
want
both
another gate.
sidewalks.
You're
You're gonna need 2
He's
gates.
gonna-
There's going to be 2
walkway.
You're gonna
gates.
need a gate for the sidewalk and the front
And a gate for the
sidewalk.
front.
and then we're putting up.
I mean, I don't understand the need for so on the revised plan, there's 2 gates on the west side of the house.
On the west side or the
Because I
east?
was tying
On
it
the west
in
side.
after the.
So you'd have this like fenced no man's land on
Just
the
essentially just a fenced-in front yard.
No. On the right side, looking at the house.
The west side
right
of the property.
Along that strip between you and the neighbor, there's a gate right in line with the front building line, and then there's a gate
She's talking
further
about
back. So I just didn't know, like, why is that section closed off? You need to look at it, I can show you.
Yeah, I think that, well, there's the existing wood fence. I don't know. I think the existing wood fence goes to the back of the parking
I mean, I don't
lot.
think there was a fence in this strip, because this is where the houses were like on top of each other.
Yeah. No, there is a fence.
Yeah, but it stops in their backyard, and then.
Not between the 2 houses.
Right,
It stops in the backyard
Marie.
section.
So was it just you're closing off where the 2 fence ends were?
Where's the existing fence? Oh, okay.
So you're just.
So what were we doing?
It's somebody's
We're stopping
You
here.
got 2 gates here.
Oh, so we should just continue up here. Yeah.
That's your gate.
Yeah. I don't know why that's like that. We'll just continue the fence all the way down. I don't know why there was.
I mean, take a doorway on that side.
Yeah, I don't, but
No, there's no doorway on that
if
side.
there's a gate,
Right, but it doesn't make
yeah,
sense.
I don't know,
Yeah.
just continue the fence all the way down. I think that's just,
On the street.
Yeah, if anybody does have.
I just wanted to make an announcement.
What's
Somebody's
that?
car is actually, their blinkers have been going off for the last half hour.
Park on the actual
Yeah.
street in like a black SUV, so your blinkers are on. Or their emergency, or their.
Something is going on with that car.
So if they're gonna change the fencing scheme from the original approval, we're gonna need to see the layout, we're gonna need to understand the materials, the design of that. And again, we want the access along the walkway between the porch and the street, and we don't want it crossing the driveway.
We would agree to that, we just ask it, we would comply with the existing ordinance. We're just asking for a different material, and obviously it won't go across the
We
driveway.
wanna see it as part of the amended site plan.
That's what we have on the plan.
That's not what it shows. It shows the driveway gate and closed off with no walkway and, so we need to see how he intends to build it.
I think these are routinely handled just as a
This is an
condition
amended
of
site plan
compliance.
application.
Condition of compliance.
If the board wants to leave the decision-making to me and Doug, that is up to the board.
I would think the board have great confidence in your decision, Chair.
I'd be willing to leave it to Donna and Doug, the fence. I speak for only me.
I would agree with that.
I would agree.
So, to maybe address this issue, hopefully move it along. The fence can be any style fence that is permitted by the ordinance, according to the ordinance requirements as far as location, setbacks, and all those. In addition to that, there shall be a gate.
Current version of the ordinance.
The current version of the ordinance,
Yes.
not the ordinance that was in effect from the original.
Correct.
In addition to that, there shall be a gate facing the sidewalk. What they do with the other portion, if they want to put a gate in, I'm assuming they're going to, that's up to them. It's just got to comply with the ordinance. And it does not have to be of wood material.
Correct.
Correct. And it does not cross the
I
driveway.
think that beats the dead horse.
Yes.
I would agree with that. Thank you,
Yes.
Jeff.
Any objections to that?
No, that's great, that's ideal. And then there's some minor facade deviations from the originally approved plans. Just ask you, what went into your thought process on that?
I think my wife's up here for that.
Of course. So we're going to hold off on Mrs. Hannah for that.
Where's that?
Mrs. Hannah made the decisions about the.
Okay, so
facade
before Mr.
exterior.
Hannah gets up, any further questions for Mr. Hannah from the board?
You have them?
I don't know, we haven't talked about the front porches and why they're so it's just not-
Somebody else is going to talk to theirs.
Okay.
Board professionals, any further questions? If there's anyone in the public that would like to ask Mr. Hannah questions regarding his testimony. All right, thank you, Mr. Hannah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They better not, those are my nieces, they came here to watch.
This is getting a little long. I'm going to make a request to take a real quick 5-minute recess as we're changing testimonies, so the board has a chance to use the facilities that they would like.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I will now take roll call. Wendy Glassman. Here. Daniel Harris.
Here.
Jill Potter.
Here.
Tim Slick.
Here.
Jose Alcaraz.
Here.
Vice Chair Scully.
Here.
Chairman Avaloni.
Here. All right, Mr. Prohl.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask Mrs. Tara Hannah to testify, and I'll ask her to be sworn in.
Ms. Hannah, you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And again, just state your name for the record and spell your last, please.
Tara Hannah, Hanna.
Could you put the mic a little closer to your mouth, Ms. Hannah, so that we could hear you a little bit better?
Is that better?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Mrs. Hannah, tell me, you're planning on living at this home, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay, and you have a newborn baby,
Yes.
and this is where your family intends to reside here?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about your involvement with the construction and development of this site.
I was heavily involved up until this past October,
And what was your role in the project then?
managing it.
And with that, did you interact with the professionals who came, the construction people?
Yes.
Okay, and did you give them orders? Were you actively involved in some of the design here?
Yes.
Okay, I specifically want to talk about the porches and how they came to be that way. In particular, the front porch, I think, has a bit of almost a foot of deviation here. How did that come to be?
Yeah, I think it's closer to 2 feet. I messed up.
Okay.
I didn't think that decking, I knew that decking wasn't livable space, so I just didn't know that it was, a huge problem to go out a little bit further.
All right.
And that's the truth.
And what's the original size of the porch?
I think it was originally supposed to be 5 feet, and it's like 6'9" now.
So did you have any concerns about furniture or?
Yeah, I mean, furniture wasn't going to fit at the 5 feet mark. And that's why we eliminated the side steps, because with those side steps, then half of the porch was just a walkway to get to them. So we said if we eliminate that, at least we have seating space on each side. But it was kind of a game day call to make it a little bigger when the framer was there.
I don't have anything else. I mean, that's just her organic story of how this came about. It's where she's going to live. The front porch is their own space, and that's what it is. Apologies.
I will say, since that last hearing, I rewatched all the original variances, and I do know that it is a huge problem because it's encroaching on that kind of, I think it's supposed to be like a 20-foot right away, and so
Yes.
with the 5-foot porch, it made sense, and now that we're over, it doesn't make sense. So I get that now in hindsight, but at the time, I genuinely just didn't think it was a
We
huge deal.
appreciate your honesty with that, Ms. Abbott.
Absolutely.
So it was an organic mistake
Yes.
that you were trying to make your space more livable. I understand that.
Yes.
Everybody wants to do that, though. Do you
Right,
realize
yeah.
that, Ms. Annie? You're not alone in people wanting what they want.
Yeah, I understand.
But why didn't you reach out to, say, the construction department and say you're making this change?
Mm-hmm. I think in hindsight,
Yeah, you
I
said
should
you were
have.
the manager, right?
Yeah, I was.
So as a manager, shouldn't you have taken it upon yourself to speak to the construction department to say you're making these changes?
I think in hindsight, I should have, but I didn't at the time.
Okay.
Are you willing to make changes to bring it within code?
I mean, it would be essentially demolishing the porches and rebuilding them.
So what else?
We have to do, we have
But are
to
you
do a
willing to
call for
comply
that.
with?
Can I just clarify, so the front porch encroaches approximately 7 feet into the front yard setback. The two side porches, I think are,
They're
it's
also
in my report,
larger.
hang on, I'll find out what it is exactly, but.
Section C.
So how did the side porches come about?
So the side porches, I actually didn't know that they were bigger until the as-built was made. My only logical thinking to that is we were trying to line up the steps to get into the front door to fall on that curb. So I think at some point when that house was lifted a little higher and the grade was altered early on in the job site, I think then when the framer had to line up the stairs with that curb, he then brought it out to make that functional. But that was not an active decision. The front porch was actually, let's go bigger. These side ones were not.
So you said you were the construction manager. What's your experience with management of construction?
I've only done like 2-3 renovations prior. I've never done new construction before.
So we apologize. We're asking for permission or forgiveness here, sorry. And, it wasn't some intentional flagrant act here. It was just someone making a ground decision here.
You realize, Mr. Prohl, everyone says that.
I get it. And I'm an attorney. I've been doing this 25 years.
You think you're the first person to tell us that?
Well, I think if it wasn't a mistake, then we wouldn't be here, right? If we followed you know, the plans.
You know, the thing is, you talk about, you wanted your front porch more livable. You were making your side areas more functional. Each of those statements disregards your neighbors.
How?
You now have a porch that extends out further, overlooking your neighbor's property.
It blocks their.
You have a view.
The neighbor still sticks
The view
out.
is impacted looking from west to east. It affects airflow going.
So both of our neighbors' porches are still much deeper than ours, probably by 2 or 3 feet.
Exactly.
On the east and the west side, we're still much more shallower than them.
Yeah, and Ms. Mertz testified the other day, our last hearing was, this porch is still set back further from the street than the neighbors. And so it's actually consistent with the neighborhood here based on the planner's testimony. So it is a shorter porch than the neighbors. It's set back further from the road than the neighbors. So in that.
So Donna, the only issue is that it does encroach on what is allowed for.
Technically, it's a front yard setback, yeah.
Okay.
Which
And
requires
at the
a
time-
variance.
So there are two issues, front yard setback. And the second issue is there was a building coverage variance issued previously, and this
No, bigger.
expands that building coverage variance.
Understood.
I don't know what the numbers are, but it does expand it.
And my.
Both
porches, or all
Yeah.
three porches.
Mr.
I
Pearl,
can
do you
bring
know what the
the figure up,
numbers?
but it's
Do you know
a
what the
minor
numbers are?
deviation, I mean, in terms of the whole scheme of
What are the exact
coverage issues.
numbers?
Do you have those numbers?
I'm gonna have the engineer come up and do that.
So we were approved at 26.7%, we're now 27.7%.
So 1% more?
Yes.
1%.
And then what is the setback to the porch?
Uncovered steps are
I think I
permitted
believe it was like
to project
18.
5 feet onto required front limit. Where is
If I remember
So-
correctly, it was 18.2?
It was permitted 5 feet, it's constructed 6 foot 9 inches, creating an 18.2 feet,
Yeah.
whereas 20 is required.
I remember correctly. So it's essentially 2 feet.
It's close to 2 feet.
Yeah.
So Ms. Hannah, I think one of my board members asked, are you willing to adjust the porch to be within what was approved on the resolution?
I mean, I'd really like to ask for forgiveness.
Here's the reality, is if you say no, they have to, don't they? I mean, that's the issue, right? So we do ask for approval on this because it's a minor deviation to 1% addition on the coverage. And again, reflecting on the planner's testimony, this matches the neighborhood, it's further set back off the road, and while it does come up a foot and a half, a little more than a foot and a half deeper onto the front, it's still well behind the neighbor's property.
We're going to have to deliberate on that, Mr. Prohl. I think each person's going to have to provide their own opinion on how they feel, but at this point, we'll just move on. Okay?
I do have one more question, sorry, Chairman. Does the porch extend beyond the neighbor's porch, or is it equal to it?
No, the neighbor still sticks out probably 2 or 3 feet past us.
I believe Ms. Mertz testified that it was in line with the neighbor's porch. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It's so that if you're looking at the house, it's right.
It was your testimony that it was in line. Is that correct? Yes or no?
We can't ask her because we
Yeah,
have
she's
this.
not.
She's not under oath right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Right,
So
right.
let's not go.
Okay, no, you're quite
I mean,
correct.
without specific numbers, if you're looking at the house to the right still comes out probably 2 or 3 feet past ours. So we're still shallower than they are. We're further away from the street. They're closer.
I mean, you can refer to the amended site plan shows where the front porch is on the house to the west. And it is closer to the street than there.
And what about the house on
And
the
there were
other
photos
side?
in the last time as well.
That one's got, it's not shown on the, but it's got the curved, rounded turret style one.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. Some of it's closer, some of it's back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of multidimensional. It's a little bit further from our porch to tell exactly.
Okay. Please proceed, Mr. Paul.
Okay. That's all I have from her, from Mrs. Hannah.
Don't talk about the siding.
Any further questions for Ms.
I apologize, there is one other thing.
Oh.
The issue of the siding. That again, so I'll ask you, how did it come about that the siding is different than what was approved on the plan?
So I think the only real difference from the plan, well, I should say the largest difference from the plan to what was built is the cedar shake across the top. There's initially supposed to be a band cedar shake on the top, I think just a little bit in the front. The board and batten was always supposed to be as is, minus the two side kind of bump outs. They were only supposed to be half board and batten, not full board and batten. We did do all smooth board around the entire project. We did more board and batten. I mean, I picked materials based on what I liked and what was available at the time. This was 3 years ago now. I don't have exact answers of, you know, what yards we were working with or, you know, what exactly
When you were making your choices, were you looking to your resolution at the time, Ms. Anna, what was agreed upon, or were you just looking at whatever they provided you as materials that you could use?
I think both. Not necessarily the resolution, but I was looking at that digital rendering that we had. So I was kind of going with that and working with the contractor at the time to try and line them up the best we could.
So your whole testimony is your lack of experience in running a project like this is a reason for us to grant you forgiveness for the choices you've made. Is that correct?
I mean, I think that can be part of it, but I think I did a good job overall. I don't think that there was many mess ups. I think I deviated very minimally.
I didn't say mess ups, Ms. Hannah. I said your choices that you made is your lack of experience in dealing with a zoning board and resolution compliance.
Yeah.
But that's essentially what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to characterize what you're saying. I'm just explaining it to the board. So it's your lack of experience in running a project like this and really following the resolution compliance that you should have.
Yeah, that's accurate.
And I'll just add, this is her home. She was just trying to make a pretty house to live in. And it wasn't some negative thing. It was just heartfelt. And I don't think it's particularly the aesthetics. There's not a huge deviation. So that's why we asked permission in that way as well.
But this is a home that does exist in the city with a resolution that was made, and you went against what was asked for or what was required. And now you're asking for forgiveness based on the fact that you did not know. Not knowing is not a reason for us to forgive anyone. That's why you have professionals.
I hear that, but we still used the right materials. It just wasn't the right style of materials. I didn't use vinyl. I didn't, you know, hop way down. I still did, you know, I still stayed in that kind of category. It was supposed to be hardy plank. I used hardy plank. It just wasn't used the correct way.
Well, you know, and I don't know that a minor change is a accurate characterization. The design standards say to use the style of materials that is prevalent in the neighborhood. And, you know, there really isn't board and batten prevalent in the neighborhood, but the board allowed it to be an accent element in the design. But the shakes are a very strong element in the neighborhood, and the lap siding is another, you know, material that's prevalent in the neighborhood. And so when you reduce those in your design, you know, take away from the strength of those requirements. So you didn't need design exceptions before because you were using materials that were found in the neighborhood. I don't, you know, now you've taken one away, and that was one of the strongest ones, you know, the shakes. So, and then you changed the style of the board and batten so that it's, instead of 8-inch on center battens, they're 16-inch on center battens. So it gives another, different feel and weight to the style of siding. The window styles have also changed. The original windows were 6/6, which again is another architectural element prevalent in the neighborhood that's consistent throughout, the district. Now we're 4/1, and I don't even know where we have 4/1, as a common window style. So, I understand and appreciate the rationale. I'm just, clarifying the record so the board understands what the differences are, what's the basis for the requirement, and, I don't know. I'm not sure what to do about it. What to recommend.
The planner spoke last time, went around the neighborhood, looked. There is board mat, and there is this style. It might be slight deviations from what was originally proposed, but it is consistent with the neighborhood, and that's our planner's testimony was quite clear, quite detailed actually, on what's the character of that neighborhood.
I can re-enter my original report into the record, which categorized all of the buildings in the neighborhood and said which materials were found. And again, it's up to the board to decide which are the...
There is 3 other houses on 4th Ave that look very similar to the product I built. With the black windows and the white smooth board, no shake.
That's a recent renovation, isn't it? That's the recent renovation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's not what was there when the application came in and we compared.
As we've been reminded, this is going by the current things in the neighborhood. It is consistent. Ms. Mertz testified this extensively. It's slight deviations. It really is. But we just ask permission. I think you know what's going on here, and I hope we offered sufficient testimony to document that. With apologies.
Any further questions for Ms. Hanna? Board professionals? Anyone in the public for Ms. Hanna regarding her testimony? Thank you, Ms. Hanna. Your next witness?
Next, I guess you've already done. You're done. Why? Because we're not going to talk about the porch size. That's the only issue left. Does the board want to hear any more testimony?
That's a loaded question. Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Do we want to hear any more testimony?
You've heard from all my professionals, so
I still don't think we still haven't talked about the mechanicals.
I agree.
Well, I thought we were going to discuss also the pavers and the asphalt.
We're gonna come
the
back to
engineers
that.
were going to discuss it and the differences.
Okay.
So I wouldn't agree totally with that statement, Mr. Prohl.
Okay, so I can bring the engineer up and ask him to just discuss the pavers. Where do we go from here? I mean, I think you've got a great understanding of what our position is, why we did things we did, but we'll talk about the pavers and the porous asphalt now.
You've already been sworn in, so you understand you remain under oath, correct?
I do, yes.
And,
Matthew Wilder.
Matthew Wilder, we've already accepted him as an expert.
Yes, Mr. Wilder, please proceed.
Sure. So the issue with the introduction of filter fabric as a base underneath the porous pavers is that this system is designed to infiltrate into the subsoil. They don't allow, the New Jersey BMP manual, which is the state document that guides stormwater design in the entire state, does not permit filter fabric when you're designing to infiltrate into the subsoil. Does water go through the filter fabric? It does, but not at the speed needed. So if we were to introduce filter fabric, we would have to introduce an underdrain. So a perforated pipe in the bottom of the system that collects the water as it ponds on the filter fabric that would tie into a nearby adjacent storm sewer. That's not what this is designed to be. If the board is amenable to me working with their engineer to determine if the stone base course could be altered from what is required by the BMP, we'd be happy to do so. But the standard from the state is you have the porous pavers and you have a choker course. That choker course is what the pavers sit on, and then you have number 55, number 57 clean stone. That's it. That's the profile of a porous paver system. The filter fabric you can have on the sides, but not underneath the system to provide any type of structural support, because again, it does block water. So the system was designed originally in conjunction with the BMP manual. I'm amenable to looking at, I did not, in preparation of this meeting, look at alternate base materials, because again, the state is specific with what that stone that's required is. We could certainly look into that to try to see if we can find a more supportive base for the pavers, but it would require us to deviate from the state's standard.
Could I just ask, besides, because it seems like the use of sand was a major part of the decision-making, right? Is the use of a different aggregate between the pavers stones themselves, besides sand, something maybe graded a little better that would not settle into the stone below? Could that, something like that be used, like
As the choker course you're referring to?
yeah, like if they could be properly graded from, you know, not without using sand.
Right.
Something a little larger, and then, like as you mentioned, the choker course, and then stepping your way up to a larger stone to eliminate the settling of sediments. I think something like that could be done, right?
Sure, I'd have to look at different types of aggregate. Again, the state doesn't give sort of a breakdown of, all right, you can use this stone or this stone. It says choker course, and they give you the specification for the choker course, and they say number 57 clean stone. But I can certainly take a look, and you know, we deal with the state on a multitude of applications, CAFR permits. So I can certainly reach out for the state to see if they have a material that they've seen in use that they don't take exception to. We're not opposed to researching that, but again, we were looking at strictly the design requirement as enforced by the BMP manual, and that's why the proposal is what it is. Understanding that we might be able to deviate from the BMP manual to provide a more suitable sub-base for the pavers, we're certainly amenable to that. I did not think that question was going to come up this evening, so I did not do that analysis.
Yeah, I think.
I don't know what to say to that.
I know, me neither.
Well, I guess I should ask the board first. You know, between porous asphalt and pavers, it seems like the preference is pavers. Is that correct?
That would be my preference. Can only speak
Mine
for
as well.
myself.
Okay.
And finding a way to get there. How do we get there?
I'll just remind the board, the first part of the driveway is the porous.
Asphalt.
Just regular asphalt, regular asphalt.
Oh, regular,
Yeah,
regular,
it
not porous asphalt.
Correct. The rear
Regular
parking
asphalt.
area was the porous area.
Exactly.
And part of it was to take the roof drains and via perforated pipe, introduce that stormwater into the stone underneath the system and infiltrate it into the ground.
Right.
So I'm confident that I could, if pavers are what the board wants, that I can work with Matt to come up with a design that achieves the original design's amount of quantity that it was storing and still is stable enough to provide for safe surface to travel on.
I'm okay with that because I trust that you can work as professionals together. But I'm one of the board.
I agree with that statement as well.
I have no issues with that as well.
So, yeah, so we just asked as a condition of approval that the engineers can work this out and just give discretion to the professionals in that.
In order to achieve the use of permeable pavers in the back, limited to the extent of
the parking area.
I think that was the only engineering. But
Any further questions regarding any other issues that the engineer can address?
We didn't really talk about lighting.
Oh, sure. So I can certainly address that. We had submitted a revised lighting plan in preparation of this meeting. If you look at the lighting plan that was revised and resubmitted, this light is a more traditional residential light fixture. It doesn't throw nearly as far as the original lights that we were proposing. So along the eastern property line where is, I guess, the most direct impact from these lights, the light levels at the property line are 0.1 foot candles, less than ambient moonlight. So there is no light trespass or light nuisance.
There's no spillage over to the neighbor's yards?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
They're identified in which plan?
The revised plan submitted by my office last dated 5/31/23. Yes, 5/31/23. And it was sheet 4 of my plan set? Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so you can't talk to that.
It looks like fixture type A, type C would require exceptions for not being full cutoff or fully shielded. Is that correct?
So we do have along the property line, we have proposed bollard light, 4-foot tall bollard lights, and in front of all the proposed landscaping. So the landscaping is effectively acts as the shield on the rear of those lights. So there should be, again, no spillage since you have that wall of evergreen plantings around the property to shield the lights. And again, they're only run at 4-foot tall. We didn't want to have a tall light fixture that would cause nuisance to any of the neighbors.
Any further questions for Mr. Wild? Board professionals?
So, so what were you saying? Hang on, I'm working something out.
Donna was just indicating that under the new ordinance, these light fixtures may be permitted, is that?
May not be.
accurate? Oh, may not.
Some of them may not be.
Permitted?
Well, I have a question in regards to what you're just saying, Mr. Beekman. Since we have to comply with the old ordinances for the FAR, we have to go by the old ordinances for everything. We cannot pick and choose which ordinances we're looking for.
I know, and that's what I was trying to get to, what the difference is.
Okay.
Between the old and the new.
So yeah, so like the floodlights would not necessarily be permitted under the new standards, but you know, the way they're showing the maybe the glare.
Yeah, I think the new lighting standards explicitly say no non-glare, have to be non-glare, full cutoff, fully shielded light fixtures. But if you go back to the original lighting ordinance, I don't believe that
We didn't have any
it
standards,
said
yeah.
that. But it doesn't.
But I'm sure Mr. Wilder would want to use what's permitted now, correct?
Well, the bollard lights hadn't changed from what was initially proposed. So those 4-foot bollard style lights are what was on the original plan.
That is true.
The revised lighting analysis we did was just swapping the building mounted lights for what the applicant installed from a design parameter. And like it's indicated, that the lights that were installed are far dimmer than what was previously depicted. While I don't think the prior lighting would have any nuisance or would disturb any neighbors, they would have more likely a chance to do that than this. These are much dimmer lights. I don't see any issue with these lights. And you know, from an aesthetic standpoint, I don't think they detract from the neighborhood or from the building itself, but the lighting should have no real negative impact.
So I would say, since we have to apply the old ordinance, and there really were less standards than the current ordinance, and according to Mr. Wilder's testimony, there's no spillage, and the foot candles at the property line are very low.
I would agree with that, John. Yeah, we can't pick and choose. We have to stick with the ordinances that were prior. So I don't want to torture anybody. I'm not looking to do that.
It's a great thing. They already have a good relationship with the neighbors. If there was ever an issue with the neighbor, they would address it.
I'm sure there'd be some upset people, yes, if there's too much light in their yards.
And they've already worked with them on the shrubs. I mean, it's how they are.
I understand. Okay. Do we have any other questions, board professionals or board? No? Anyone in the public for Mr. Wilder's testimony? Okay, thank you very much.
So at this point, we'll just close up. If you'd like, I'll just give a quick wrap up and go forward.
I think that's appropriate.
Thank
Why don't
Go ahead, Jeff.
Why don't we let us just open up for public comment, just so it's on the record?
Oh, right.
We obviously don't expect any, since there hasn't been any questions.
No. I'll make a motion to open up for general comment, either for or against this application.
Second.
Okay. Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
Seeing none, moving on. All right, it's your show, Mr. Prohl.
So
your summary would be appreciated.
I'll just say briefly, we apologize for where we've gone wrong, and we ask for the board's mercy. We've heard organically what you've said. We withdrew the issue. We're going to deal with the basement consistent with the building department and construction officials and move forward on that. It will be a permanent ceiling, as you heard testimony. With respect to the asphalt and also the sidewalk, and the other issues, we're going to deal with professionals. That'll be a healthy dialogue, as it usually is in these situations. Nothing's going to happen without the professionals' consent in this regard. There are a couple issues we acknowledge with the porches here. You heard Mrs. Hannah's testimony. It was honest and genuine. This is her home. They're moving in with a family. This is where they want to raise their child. And so this is how they design the house. It's something where they want to live. And again, they're already working with their neighbors. They've already had conversations about that.
Just give it a moment.
Okay. About the landscaping, about other issues there. So they intend to be good neighbors. They already are good neighbors. And for these reasons, and with the benefit of the professional's testimony, we just ask for the approvals and the deviations, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Prohl. So it's back to the board. I'll entertain deliberation at this point. Does anybody, would anybody like to deliberate? Or make any comments?
Mr. Prohl, I just want to be clear that your professionals are going to deliberate with our professionals on the pavers. On the walkway to the front right away,
Absolutely right.
we were clear with
The walkway
that.
will be built consistent with the approval previously.
Okay.
Yes.
John?
Go ahead, Dan.
I'm somewhat disappointed that we haven't discussed the mechanicals, that you've chosen to talk about everything except the mechanicals.
I'd be happy to bring that up. I mean, it was just the professional came in who installs those, says basements are bad ideas. I think we've all been through Hurricane Sandy and seen what happens. It was a decision to migrate it to the upper floors. So it's that simple. There's no other reason for that. It was just
so it wasn't the operation of the mechanicals. It was the potential of a flood. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Prohl?
Yeah, I mean, I can bring the professional up.
No, because we'd have to.
I wasn't there, but there was a legitimate, honest reason for that. It wasn't for any other reason except.
Okay, so this is further testimony. So we've already closed out on that. So, Danny, go ahead.
No, I just felt that is something that should have been addressed with the board, with the construction department, and with all of us. I mean, if we allowed people just to do anything they wanted to do, that doesn't guarantee that every professional is a great professional. And we cannot have people running around here doing what they want to do after decisions and resolutions have been made. That is a stickler with me. I don't know what it's like with the rest of the board, but that is a stickler with me. And sometimes it breaks down to all I have to do is ask, just like you ask for everything else. So what I have heard is that we have a minor here, a minor there, a minor here, a minor there. You put enough minors together, it becomes a major. Thank you.
Anybody?
Yeah, I think that Mr. Harris has expressed it very well. It is, you've come in at a late stage and attempted to have a very relaxed, easy conversation about something that has not been easy, and has taken a lot of time and a lot of thought by this board. Again, these things aren't really minor. We've heard different explanations for each of the changes, each of the deviations. Early on in the hearings, Mr. Hanna said the reason that the elevation looks different was because he didn't really like the materials and the design that his professionals had submitted. Later we hear from Mrs. Hanna that it was, well, I didn't really think about it, I didn't know, so we couldn't get things, and I'm new to this, and I'm inexperienced, and so this is just what we did. We heard conflicting or inconsistent testimony from the architect 2 hearings ago. I don't think that the planner's testimony to us was at all compelling. It was basically a summary of what land use law is about, but it didn't really address the particulars. I understand that it is complicated to undo many of the mistakes, but I don't think that we're here with inexperienced, unprofessional homeowners. And I just don't find the reasons for the deviations and not coming and speaking with city officials to have been credible.
One of my largest frustrations with this application is the amount of initial testimony. Had there been an hour of testimony and if the applicant wasn't a sophisticated developer, builder, I might put more weight on your ask for forgiveness. But when there was hours upon hours, as you know, you viewed it, hours upon hours of testimony, discussions to the type of windows, the type of siding, the basement, and then to have to be back here again, because this is now our 3rd meeting for non-compliance. And again, we have to pull out of your experts and pull out of your applicant the answers that we're looking for. It's one of my biggest frustrations with this, and probably the biggest hurdle that I have to overcome.
Anyone else?
I have to say that this experience has been pretty disappointing. I mean, again, we spent hours on the initial approval, and we do resolutions for a purpose, and for those not to be followed, it's hurtful. We're volunteers. We don't get paid, right? This is my Tuesday night. I'd be home watching my programs. I don't watch programs, but watching the ball game. You know? And I'm here. I'm here for you. So it hurts. And I spend hours on that darn Zoom. And to have to hear like, oh, well, it's just a foot here. Oh, we had to do this. Oh, it's just, we couldn't get the siding. It's just aggravating. And when does it end? Because it doesn't end with you. We have other applicants willy-nillying around town. And to Danny's point, we just can't have it. So why are we here? Right? And I don't want an answer. I'm just airing the frustrations. So this is a frustrating, hard thing for me to sit through and listen to the 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. That equals a lot. When it could have just been done if the resolution and plans were looked at.
From my point of view, it's aside from what everybody has said, I have not seen the resolution from your side. It's always like, well, we will do whatever you recommend. There is no clear proposals of how the things have to be addressed or solved. So yes, there were errors. Yes, there were things that happened in the past, but I have not seen a clear way to solve things. It's always kind of little by little and minimizing the errors just to try to get it through. It's more on the resolution side. So yes, they are, how do we solve it? How do we go forward? And it's the point that I have not seen very, very clear. That's all.
I will make the final statements. And I'm going to give it a little bit more of a silver lining, more than the rest of the board has said at this point, and more than the applicant deserves. I am willing to vote in favor of this application, but not because of the testimonies I've heard, but because we work very hard here. And we look for compliance out of the people that come before us. We see that you genuinely want to fix the situation in the basement. And I'm going to hold you to that. And it better be maintained. As for the paver system, that's going to have to be worked out with the engineers. I'm very disappointed in this application and in you people particularly. But I don't think it's fair to say you have to rip it all down. That's not why we sit here. So, on that note, I'd be willing to approve this application with all these conditions. But that's only me. I'm one vote. That doesn't mean the rest of the board feels the same way as I do. So, with that being said, do I have a motion, either for or against this application?
Can I make one comment?
Go right ahead, Tim.
Sorry, because my issue, we do these things, the reason for the resolution is for safety. It's for the safety of the people who are living in this building. You, your tenants, the whole basement issue, livable, unlivable, if somebody's down there watching the TV and the place is burning down, there's no egress. Okay? That's why we're so about it. It's like these things are important. Okay? The front porch, personally, I don't have that much of an issue since it is in line with your neighbors. I don't like the fact that you built it bigger without permission. I do, however, have a serious issue with the side ones because they're 1 foot out into your driveway. It's not safe. And not only that, you have the balcony above that overlooks your neighbor's property. We always have an issue with that. This particular board has issues with overlooking your neighbor's property. I would like to see you rebuild those side porches. That's my personal view.
I'll make a motion to approve the application based on all the additional requirements that we put in place. Work with our board professionals on the pavers.
And the fence.
Fence.
I have the scope sheet.
Thanks, Julie. Where am I looking?
Anywhere.
No.
Here's the whole book.
Front walkway out to the right of way. Fence material. The lighting. Anything else? Jeff, was there anything else that we?
Yeah.
I mean, you must have all the...
Yeah. But I want it spelled out in the resolution.
Absolutely.
We have the building coverage variance modification from 26.7% to 27.7%. We have a porch setback of 18.2 feet for the front yard setback to the porch. The lighting plan shall comply with the sheet 4 of the plans dated 5/31/2023. The front yard fencing requirements may deviate from the wood fence requirements, complying with the current fence ordinance as to style, height, location, and setbacks, opening percentage, etc., as required by the ordinance. The gate, there shall be a gate to the walkway that will be to the sidewalk, and there shall be no gate or fence across the driveway. And the board planner and or engineer shall confirm compliance with those conditions. I think you did address walkway out to the sidewalk directly from the front porch, so.
Correct.
And, well, I think you addressed the permeable pavers will be worked out.
Worked out between the engineers.
Correct.
I will second that motion.
Wendy Glassman?
No.
Daniel Harris?
No.
Jill Powder?
Yes.
Tim Slick?
No.
Jose Alcaraz?
Yes.
Vice Chair Scully?
Yes.
Chairman Avaloni?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much. I apologize.
Sorry.
Motion to adjourn?
We'll be watching Mr. Hanna.
I walk my dog by your house all the time.
I don't, I never saw you.
I see you.
Can we get a TCO?
That's not up to us,
That's not
Mr.
for us to
Pearl.
give.
Not ours. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Instructions.